This week's episode was brought to you by Lucas Allen and Eli Santiago. If you too enjoy the show and would like to help us on our quest to interview Bigfoot, make your way on over to www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where a monthly donation of $5 will get you all our extended shows, 2 different large gourmet whole rabbit stickers to deface your property and others, along with access to our Discord server, where we discuss these esoteric ideas openly and sometimes even play Minecraft together. If that sounds fun to you, consider giving it a go. On this week's episode, I'm joined by Rona the Time Witch and MariSama to discuss the bedeviling mysteries of time, encoded both in the devil card of the tarot and the universe itself. We'll get carried away on waves of probability, navigate through diamond-encrusted caves of causality, fornicate with time tunnels, and circumnavigate the mysteries found chained to old Baphomet. We appreciate all of you for listening. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Turn off all my fans, including the one on my computer. Then my computer turns into a super hot molten brick. It's so fun.
I feel like that's not healthy.
It's
also, you can turn your fans off.
Well, I can't. I can turn them down to like a minimum level, and then it seems to be fine. If I look at the internals or whatever, the processor temperature is fine. It just heats up the actual computer like a fucking brick, dude. It's just like a brick from space. It's just like
like a cube almost.
Yeah, like a cube, space cube. Mari, how you doing, Mari? Are you there?
I'm studying. Yes.
You're studying. See, that's the thing. You gotta cram at the last minute. Otherwise, you're not really doing what you have to.
I'm reviewing things that I skipped.
There's a lot of stuff to get to about time. That's the problem. There's a lot to talk about with time.
I was gonna find a picture of a causal diamond.
A causal diamond?
Yeah.
Oh man, that sounds like something that you could sell on the black market instead of organs.
It's it's part of the quantum mechanics part.
Can you turn it into a weapon?
If you could sell one to someone else that is inaccessible to them, then yes, it would be somewhat of a chaos machine that would launch you into a separate or a separate universe where you'd have a different timeline completely, but it would be in the same moment.
And that's why we're going to steal one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just sit around and count the minutes as they pass. No, we torture it with lasers, mutilate it with mirrors, constrain it with quartz crystals, and make it into a gigantic metaphor about tarot cards and the devil, because today we're discussing time, the abstract subsections of moments that's nearly impossible to quantize, not the spice. Nonetheless, the spice and time must flow. So today, we're joined by none other than Rona, the Time Witch himself.
Quack. Hi. I'm here. Here in this moment of time. Glad to be here again.
Thank you for coming. And the mighty, magnificent MariSama, the samurai queen herself.
Konnichiwa.
So, wow. This episode has been a long time in the making. I guess like 13 billion years or something like that. I don't know.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, who knows for sure, because time flows at different consistencies.
Jesus knows for sure.
Does he? Does he really?
If he doesn't, the Jinn do. They've been here longer.
They're outside of this 4-dimensional slice of life that we're in.
This is all just a dumb question to them. So I guess to get started, we want to talk about personal experiences, personal practice, and just personal feelings about time. And who better than to talk to than Rona the Time Witch, who I know seems to be able to affect time in strange ways with his magic.
It's, well, time, I want to start off, and it's like the first page in my Book of Shadows itself. Time doesn't actually exist, and that's something that, you want to really remember. You get into studying it or becoming aware of it or the like. It's like time is essentially just an agreed upon construct. It's subject to the same laws as any other great force, like the all being, or, in order to know it, you have to first become aware of it and then feel its effects and then, put it in its own limits. But as time is one of those forces that's always changing, because that's the point. It's like a ruler. I believe that, in my own personal experience, casting types of spells get absorbed into the ether that is time. And as time carries on, your constant awareness feeds that spell until the universe then returns it on that pendulum swing. So, I'm not going to say every money spell I've cast hasn't come true over time, but it has, as long as you wait for it. You can be patient. It acts as a ruler and a constraint, which you're going to dive into later with the devil.
Totally. But to dive into some of what you said, you make it sound as if time is a place where you plant your seed and then it grows.
Yes, time is a stream. I would like to really, call it.
That's a great metaphor for it, actually.
Yeah, it flows, and it can flow quickly or slowly. The studies out, the statistics are there. Time moves quicker if you're in motion as opposed to somebody who's just standing still. Even if we're both on the same, you can see time as relative, but that constrains it to like almost linear walls. Or you can see time as a ton of different points that become connected based on our own decisions and our own vibrations and how we, affect it. It's as much affected by us as we are by it.
It's a branching river.
Yeah, exactly.
So every rock that divides the river or piece of land is a decision that you make or something that occurs in reality that splits the timeline. So, but you can view the timeline on multiple different levels.
Exactly.
So if you're observing the Earth as a whole, then it has a different timeline than, say, if you observe Rona the Time Witch by himself. He has his own timeline.
Granted, it all plays a part to that whole stream metaphor where time is still flowing one general direction for us.
Correct.
Regardless of, how it splits or where it goes, it's all kind of going down.
It really seems that way, doesn't it?
Yes, it's very interesting because also the laws of relativity allow for time to go backwards, but it seems the natural flow of the universe is to go forwards.
Especially at our time scale.
Yeah. And you know how we, Capricorns love our linear thing.
Cutting out.
But I can...
Sorry, our Capricornian eyes and our linear thinking. It makes more sense to see time, as a line rather than circular points. For us, at least. We know that Aquarians and those who more circular star, but that's for another time.
Well, different cultures do see time differently. Like Hindu and Buddhist timelines are circular, where Christian timelines you have an end point.
Judeo-Christian. All of them are linear, and then the Eastern religions, and a lot of them are philosophies. Really, they preach a circular timeline. Like, if you ever heard the euphemism, "Time repeats itself."
Time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat circle.
You're a flat circle.
I'm not saying it's the best show ever, but it's the best show ever. It's pretty good. It's not bad. It's all right.
I love time.
I'd watch.
I wish I had way more of it.
Okay, so is time something you can actually have and possess, like quarters in your pocket, or is this just a made-up thing?
It's made up.
I would disagree, but I mean, on the current plane, yeah, you can't exactly store time. Like, you can hold a clock, or you can
spend your money or your time as money.
So you're investing your time, which you then convert into biosurvival tickets. Let's just call them what they are. And so you have more time.
Tokens.
Yeah, reality tokens. And then, so that gives you more time to play waifu games in Discord, like shamelessly.
Correct.
Yes, but then that completely, disregards time's other name, space time as a measurement of distance that you go in space. But that's more the relative aspect of and its relativity. If you want to talk about time itself, it's
we
really
will
hard.
get there.
Yeah.
Well, it's really hard to know when the right time to do something is. I know in an esoteric principle that correlates to that is the idea of kalos, and it's this idea that time is an unfolding, and there are specific times and moments where something feels appropriate, and like that's the time to do it. So
it's in resonance with the time.
Yes, something like that. It's also
resonance or correspondent.
like close by, like you said. Yeah, it has to resonate with you and be close by in the time field where you are at that moment.
Because this is something they talk about in the Timaeus, how the abstract world, everything is perfect and embodied 100%, but then anything that is created is like born and has a middle and then like eventually dies. So no one moment is it experiencing all of itself. So in that way, you could consider anything that's manifest in that way to be like a rainbow. And in each moment of that rainbow, there's something that's suitable or appropriate to it based on its nature. But because the thing is never fully embodied, those moments matter, I guess, to say it badly.
One more time. The moments matter because it's manifesting into itself.
Well, basically, like if you're eternal and infinite, you're like unchanging and you're in your ideal state. But if you're manifesting, you usually start as something and then you have a middle and then an end. And so you're never fully 100% what you really are. And you're kind of smeared across your whole life like a rainbow. And like, I guess all of existence is kind of like that. So in terms of magic, that's why certain moments have a certain charge that works in a certain way and others don't, because life is just a big box of chocolates, I guess.
Well, that sounds like existentialism, because in effect, they tell you that if something doesn't change, it's not alive in reality. So if something like an idea or a god or some kind of higher power, if it expresses in a higher dimension, then it's going to be an ideal that never changes. It's unchanging and immortal.
Is that the only way they could get around it being subject to that, restraint of time? Because time does. The question becomes, does time affect you if you're immortal? No.
Because you're outside of it. You're outside of it, though.
So, for example, if I was immortal right now, would I still be affected? I mean, I might not be affected, quote unquote, and this might just be, a restraint of our language more than a restraint of the thing that is time. But would I still be affected, or would time still exist to me?
You're stuck. You're stuck in a 3-dimensional vessel, your body. So you're tethered to the 3-dimensional plane. So your vessel will die. But it doesn't mean that your soul stops existing. It's probably a protrusion of something that's outside of space-time reality, which means it's either in 5-dimensional space or higher or another dimension.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to say no. You could have a body that is outside of time. You're not affected by time. That's what I mean by no. And you'd be able to manifest a physical body from outside of time, depending on your mastery. I'm not disagreeing with you, Mari. I was just answering his question.
Meant, as a human, do that. And I'm like, no, you were already born in this vessel. You have to go outside first and then manifest in this universe as a higher dimensional spirit being.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me. How you went there too, because I was keeping the question on this plane. You took it to like the next plane up. You're like, well, yeah, I mean, time affects us because we're human. So then, am I correct in believing then that time wouldn't affect our soul as a thing because our soul is part of the all soul?
Yes.
You're
and the more power.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the bigger and more power it absorbs, the longer it'll last in the spirit realm. So that's when people talk about, like when we talked about apotheosis, that's kind of an example of that.
You have certain souls that are bound to time and then certain souls that are not. If you're going to take the Egyptian anatomy of the soul, like your Ob soul can manifest inside of time and outside of time. So that's like your gateway between the two.
Your chariot, so to speak. You can go back and forth.
But your Kaibet, like your shadow, I'm pretty sure is bound to time and earth.
Oh, that's like your spooky haunting ghost.
Your spooky haunting ghost soul. That's the sort of soul you want to feed around Halloween time. Not because I read that anywhere, but because
it's an offering, right?
It sounds clever. I mean, it's almost Halloween spooky time.
If you pay homage, you don't get tricked, right?
Animal Crossing, the Halloween stuff. I feel like
God.
Trick. Yeah,
so
they're not giving us any treats, so we got to trick Animal Crossing.
What's going on with that? I'm willing to talk about that for one moment. There's no Halloween in Animal Crossing.
I thought there
I read today.
was.
Yeah, I read in an article. No, there's Halloween. They're just not doing any event like they did for Bunny Day.
Oh,
I thought
that's ridiculous.
they had in the old games they have the jack-o'-lantern guy that hides candy pieces.
Oh, great. So instead of hitting down actual usable material, I'll be hitting down
candy. And it's those shitty taffy candies with the black and orange wrappers that everyone throws away. Or you trade them for Tootsie Rolls.
So why do we,
Oh,
I mean, we celebrate this time of year because it's supposed to be the harvest time where all of our hard work has paid off. So that's a product of time. We're supposed to be reaping the benefits of time.
Yeah.
Well, that's Saturnalian.
Yeah, well, that's because time, I mean, it can act as the ruler. It lets you know that things are going forward. You know, the first thing, sight check me, you check for time on seasons was the moon. The moon would go through its phases and people could look up and be like, oh, well, it's a different night than it was last night because the moon is different. It's a plot of orientation.
That's where we get months or menses.
And that's a little bit like kalos, which I was trying to explain earlier, how there's a moment to reap and a moment to sow and a moment to run around and steal candy from elderly people or kids, depending on your orientation and your alignment to capitalism, etc.
Don't get deep on us now. Rona was
Big heist on Halloween.
Yo, I think the Guido Boys song is probably the best song about Halloween ever. Mind playing tricks on me.
Yeah. But here's a question about time. So
stole it from Isaac Hayes.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, Isaac Hayes did the song to that, and then like every 10, 15 years somebody samples it, and it's like, this is the best song in rap ever. And it's like, yeah, because it's Isaac Hayes did it. Anyway, I don't mean to...
I have to look this up.
No, okay. So your body tracks time via your circadian rhythm, right?
Yes.
Circadian rhythm? Okay. And you can mess with that just by changing your eating pattern. I made a post about it on my Instagram once upon a time. I was like, hey, if you ever need to, stay up late for studying, track your circadian rhythm and like eat quote unquote breakfast when you would want to be awake so you can trick your body. So if you can trick your body that well, can you as above so below broaden that potential? Do you think humans would be able to work in a 24-hour system, or do you think everyone would just because of how society has gone to sleep at night for such a long time?
We would need UV lamps for a while until we evolved away from it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Like tanning beds, like you'd wake up and have a tanning bed in the morning instead of a shower, like a UV
cleanse. Oh yeah, because we still need sunlight.
Yeah, we need it to make vitamin D. You can eat vitamin D, but it doesn't absorb the same way. You actually need to be outside. So you can alter your sleeping patterns. And there's another, it's like there's a certain kind of wave that every person has where they're most active and then it goes down. But you can alter that. It's called, it's a circadian rhythm, but there's another word for it. But it's very interesting because there's like periods that individuals have.
That's super true. And I learned that through science because in high school I had a DeviantArt account and I made artwork regularly. Yeah. And there was an app or some sort of magical thing back in the day where you could see your stats and what time you submitted your artwork. And like clockwork, I would submit my artwork around 11 p.m. It just happened that way.
Every day.
It was like a bell curve around that time.
Oh my God. I just found this.
Also do with your active time via Zodiac. Cause I did a lot of shit done at 12 and I did my research. Turns out, Capricorn's the most active that time, 12 midnight. Okay.
Yeah. Different Zodiac signs. Sorry, go ahead, Mari.
This is crazy, you guys. Cause that reminds me of this theory that I had a computer program in Windows 3.1 when I was like a little kid in 1995, and it was called Biorhythms. And it would, if you put your birthday in, it would chart this like wave pattern. And the elements are physical, emotional, and intellectual. And it shows you like where you crest and where you trough, like in the month or the year, however. Oh, wow. But it's a mathematical theory that charts basically your well-being. It's kind of like astrology, but it's charted with a 23-day cycle and a 28-day emotional cycle and a 33-day intellectual cycle. So it measures your intellectual, your emotional, and your physical. and wherever they crest together is like where you have the most potential. So you can read it like almost like an astrology chart.
Interesting.
Do you have a
That's
link
cool.
to that? Please put a link
Yeah.
to that. And
You actually do have a link to that. Cool.
There's a lot of cool theories in the 1970s and 80s specifically, and they're alternate time theories about how time repeats or how there's cycles or waves of time, and like how you can describe the rotation around the Earth, the orbit around the Earth, or even the sun going up and down or the moon cycles. You can express that as a wave on a two-dimensional piece of paper. So you can chart
duality.
Yeah, you can chart these cycles and see where they both culminate together, and that's where you have a lot of power going on.
Mook, you made a point about that duality while we were studying for this episode, how, things can't exist without time, can't exist without that back and forth, up and down wave.
Yeah, I was looking a lot into the devil card because every time you're referred to time in the tarot, you're told to go look at the devil. And so I spent some time looking at the devil card, and I found some stuff. I think we could maybe launch into that and then kind of go back and hack it up into little pieces with everything we wanted to talk about.
Okay, well,
lay it on me, Slim. Let's unpack this motherfucker. I
did want to mention that, like, as Rona was saying in the beginning, the measurement of time is artificial. So when we make clock is a device that measures time. So in the internals of a clock, you usually have a physical mechanism like a pendulum or a quartz stone or something like that resonates, or it moves back and forth at a regular interval. And that's how time is charted. So it has to do with physical reality. And I think that you're leading into talking about the Satan card. That's relevant.
I like how you call it the Satan card.
Well, whatever.
It's
the devil.
You're not wrong, though.
It's a
Western word.
Atomic clocks.
Oh, atomic clocks.
They measure like the atoms. It's so weird.
It's in a chip, and there's an electrical resistance. They put some kind of element as an atom inside the chip, so it'll actually oscillate energy at a regular rate. So then the clock always knows what time it is. So you can unplug it and plug it back in, and it already knows.
When you mean it oscillates it at a regular rate, are you talking about a state of decay, like Half-Life, or something else?
She knows the technique.
Well, it's that the electricity pulse is a regular pulse, right? Like, you know how much electricity is going into the chip.
Oh, so it's a quartz. It's a quartz.
It's like a nano quartz. It's like an atom that's a quartz that resonates like a quartz crystal, which is what like a watch is. A watch has a crystal in it.
Time comes from crystals, confirmed. Mari 2020.
But phones and I have an atomic alarm clock in my bedroom. There's a chip in it that has some kind of, there's like an element.
Iridium?
I don't know. Hold on here.
I feel like it's iridium. Hold on. Yeah, you're right. We have technology.
They use some kind of atom and they put it in this little tiny microscopic box, and it radiates microwaves into the atom, and the atom actually has a regular interval that it pulsates when it's microwaved, because the atoms are exciting, or not the atoms, I'm sorry, the electrons orbiting the atoms are exciting and jumping the next shell and then down into the lower valence shell. So it's just jumping back and forth, and it makes this regular pattern. And I would liken it to, I guess if you're into astronomy, like quasars and pulsars also have a regular interval. So do the orbits of planets. Some stars dim at regular intervals. There's so many things that you could use as clocks in the natural universe.
Like anytime I'm trying to record, a train goes by, like that.
Oh no, I didn't hear the train this time.
I'm the train.
Choo choo.
Woo!
Is that what they call you? There's so many different directions we could go. I feel like we're halfway through the free show, and we have to jump into the devil card for the people that listen regularly.
Okay,
I think that would be fair for them.
Well, hey, let's do it.
Like I said earlier, when seeking the mysteries of time within the tarot, one's usually directed to ATU XV, the devil, which is symbolized by the Capricorn goat, who stands atop the highest mountain and is considered the most exalted sign of the zodiac, if you asked Aleister Crowley. He's risen vertically from his fishy origins in the waters, because, he has a fish tail if you look in the traditional Capricorn symbol. This is symbolized by the waters of noon, which is in the death card. He takes that dissolving energy and he combines them, much like in the temperance card, how the angel is combining. So the devil does both. He separates and he recombines. The Eliphas Levi sketch upon which the devil card is based, on each arm he sports solve and coagula, which indicate the twin processes. While death points to the dissolution of form, temperance to their combination, the devil sees to their endless addition and generation by the application of these twin forces. In his most basic sense, the devil is the creative principle of duality, because the ability... because the ability to combine and separate allows for the generation and multiplication of form. The devil card's official title, the Lord of the Gates of Matter, starts to make more sense. To exist, one must pass through these twin gates. He's the all-begetter, paginator, the male creative principle, which is expressed by growth. And the card represents the joy and the drunkenness of the natural world and how fertile it is. And then we see that everything in nature grows according to the golden ratio and the golden spiral.
Yeah, that's a basic principle.
And that's true all the way from the lowest depths, which is symbolized by the fish, and then all the way to the highest heights, which is the mountain goat. And
interesting. I want to interject there.
Go ahead.
Though, is that humans, we have 5 appendages, correct? That's it's basically something derived off of the golden ratio. Because think about starfish. There's species of starfish that have five points, just like us, but there's also some that have 86 or even up to 100 or more little tendrils.
I don't know what point you're making, but don't most creatures have a 5-ness to them?
The golden ratio is in all of it. So you just multiply it to a higher ratio and you get these weird otherworldly shapes. And it happened a lot in the ocean. So you'll see things that have 5 points, but you'll also see things that have 125 points, or you know what I mean? It's all Earth seems to be a multiple of 5. Things seem to happen in multiples of 5 in the matter, in the materia here.
So when the Discordians say that, they're only kind of joking? That's funny.
I mean, it's a
the shape that you see most often is the world is what, 6? It's a pentagram. No,
it's somewhere between 6. It's somewhere between 5 and 6, I think.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting esoterically, because the grade where you reach your holy guardian angel is 5 equals 6. And esoterically, the 5 represents the world of man, the Vitruvian man and woman. But also 6 represents God, Well,
your spirit has been...
it's actually working backwards along the tree in that regard, Rona, because you're working up from Malkuth. So you're actually going from... I don't know, man. It's been a while.
What are we? If we're talking about the devil, that's Hod to Tiprith. What are you talking about for Malkuth? You go from Malkuth to Yesod.
Okay, so in an initiatory society, like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, it's grade 5 equals 6, where you meet your holy guardian angel, and that's because one explanation of that symbolism is 5 is the symbol of the human, and the 6 is the symbol of the divine. And when you're doing Solomonic magic and you're conjuring Goetia, a traditional way to do it, you have a symbol of 5 on you, which binds you to the symbol of the hexagram, which is the symbol of God. So that's a principle that is used in demonic summoning, at least, that 5 equals human, 6 equals God.
Well, yeah. Also, in the Tree of Life, if we're still talking about, the connections of the Devil card, what is that? That's path from, like I said, 8 to 6, Hod to Tiprith.
Yes.
What is that? That's the pillar of severity to the pillar of mildness.
Yes, it is. Yes. And then specifically the sphere of splendor, Hod to Tifereth, beauty. And splendor is sort of like the numinousness of something, and the little minutia, the little parts, the things that make up something, the intricate pieces.
So then the opposite is what? Oh, and I think it's also kind of funny also, the other side of that in the Tree of Life is death, which is a fish. It's the other side. It's the other side of a goat. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
From Nazak to Tiphereth is death, the path of death. It's as a fish. It's an eye and a fish.
And then temperance, there's always the combination of the two things. And then,
Right.
The couple is there and the devil card is like, I wrote down what the phi ratio was because I have my moments and I had to sit there and be like, how would I describe the golden ratio to myself so I would be able to understand it? And I put it like this. The golden ratio is achieved when you add two things together and their total size is the same to the bigger thing as the bigger thing is to the smaller thing. Did that make sense?
It's a hologram, guys.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of fun if you think of that sexually, though. It's like if the combination of two people are as equally powerful as the more powerful person to the more submissive person or whatever, then you have like balance or something. I don't know. Call me crazy. Am I thinking outside the box? Anyway, the golden ratio appears like everywhere in nature. This is evident in the formation of galaxies and even in the rings of Saturn. And it goes like basically like it's through everything. The Greeks,
Hurricanes,
hurricanes, yes,
and broccoli,
spiral broccoli, especially.
asparagus,
you can see it.
Asparagus,
Asparagus, yes.
Asparagatsi.
I like that pronunciation.
like pretty much. Also, our ears are that way.
Oh yeah.
A lot of body parts are that way.
The Greeks called it phi.
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 Yeah. So if this is a symbol of the growth of the natural world, then that's associated with the giant phallus in the card, the generative quality of the spiral and the universe. So there's no escaping this dick. No matter which way you look, above, below. And then humans are bound like between the two scales, like between the large and the small. We're like perfectly in between the macrocosmic and the microscopic. I think this might explain some of the symbolism in the Lady Frida Harris devil card, where it just looks like a bunch of humans that are in testicles of the devil. And they look like they're in a clot kind of. I also think there's something to be said about the large scale of the universe and the small scale of the universe. When they get together, the fact that we're right in the middle says something about we're kind of like a product of the very large and the very small. We're like a child of time. And that's the other name of the devil card is the child of time. I think the devil card is an apt expression of time as a sexual creation because it flows in circles energetically between two poles, which is like those two levers. It generates more of itself as it rises, creating a spiral. So time is a spring rather than a flat circle. Sorry, True Detective fans. In the Thoth Tarot, you see the spiral horns jetting from each side of Pan's head, and that's symbolic of the twin poles that generate, creating through time. The Hebrew letter associated with the card Ayin gives us some clues as well. Ayin means eye and is the shape created by two circles with their center point positioned on the other's edge or perimeter. Another way to say this is one begins where the other ends. Their overlap creates this eye shape, which is called a vesica Pisces, which incidentally is where the golden section appears first and is reflected in the rectangularity of the goat's eye. The unity is a function of their separateness, and their combination is where awareness arises. And there's some symbolism here with the opening of Shiva's eye, which is said to be when the subject and the object is dissolved in bliss. And I felt like this corresponded well with the fact that the devil is called the eye or the eye card. I don't know, man. Sometimes if you can get into that mental state where subject and object dissolve, it feels pretty good. It feels pretty good, man. It feels good.
You're right. And the devil card, that going off of your eye and an eye, the devil card being, I am, it represents kind of like the new moon, the ability to look within yourself and figure out what are in combination of the male creative and male creative aspects as combined. You need to recognize that there is more to you in order to realize that you are one whole.
You have to unify the two poles in yourself is what you're saying.
Right. I am me. I am like me being the divine child of I am. Creation being always about polarities and the law of attraction and resonance and stuff like that.
It's like a magnet has a north and a south pole. Those are singularities of a dual piece of material.
What happens if you cut a magnet in half?
It becomes two magnets.
And this is an expression of the fact that you cannot manifest in the material world without polarity or dualness.
Correct. There's a flow back and forth.
Yeah, a back and forth. And, speaking of back and forth, the devil card backwards is just live. You live.
Well, the devil card is because in Christianity, the devil bad, the devil evil, but in the ancient Egyptian, it was a more abstract principle. And we talked about this in the Become a Living Dog episode, where the image on the Stela of Revealing is this god Mentu, which is a title of Set. And Set is the symbol on the Was scepter, which all high-ranking priests had. And it terminates in a dual prong, which is said to be symbolic of this law, that all things manifest in duality. So in birth, for instance, the tools that were used to deliver babies usually had a symbol of Set because it was symbolic of the separation from the one becoming two. So and then when I was staring at the card, I kind of had a brainwave. I was looking at it and I was thinking that light itself is a product of the dual forces, electricity and magnetism. And this is like the speed limit of everything in the material universe. So to quote Wikipedia, according to special relativity, c is the upper limit for speed at which conventional matter and information can travel. Though this speed is most commonly associated with light, it is also the speed at which massless particles and field perturbations travel in a vacuum, including electromagnetic radiation, of which light is a very small range in the frequency spectrum, and gravitational waves. So the title, Lord of the Gates of Matter and Angel of Light, makes some sense. In the Rider-Waite deck, Adam's tail is a radiating flame, while Eve bears the magnetic cluster of grapes in hers. And this is the pair everywhere found who bind the material universe. And it's the secret of, I think, the card, because he totally looks like electricity. She totally looks like magnetism. And the two together lead to Tifereth, or beauty. They create light. And light is what's observed by the eye, or aeon. So I was like, all right, so all the symbolism does go together in some way.
Right. You can't go faster than the speed of light, right?
You can't really if you're made of matter. You have to be...
Correct. Because you'll turn into light if you do.
Yeah.
And when the universe began, the first instant is however fast the speed of light could travel. So it basically underpins our entire reality.
So to give some credence to the Become a Living Dog people and the Satanists out there, like the black flame would be something that is a creative flame or light that is unbound by duality.
Because it's a black flame specifically?
Well, because all things that are made of light are bound in duality.
Like a black hole. Like you would go there to get out of light reality, because that's the only thing light can't escape.
I think there was some argument whether or not the light, if you considered it as information, was destroyed or if it was contained somewhere. I think the physics say it's somewhere maintained or somewhere saved, but I'm not 100% sure.
Correct. And it radiates off in the form of Hawking radiation.
Oh, so he still got his name attached to it, even though he was initially wrong about it. Nice.
Well, but that was his next theory that he used to explain why black holes seem to, after a long period of time, I'm talking a long time, they start to decay out of their poles. And it seems to be, you know how they talk about dark energy or whatever, or something of that nature, or X-rays. Sometimes they emit X-rays. So it's a certain type of radiation, but black holes do emit energy, but it's only and it takes a long time for them to emit everything.
So they run out.
What, coming from the other side? Something's coming from the other side.
I think so. But I think that when you go through, maybe you come out somewhere else.
I knew we'd end up talking about black holes in a time episode.
Well,
oh my God.
Black holes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a place where the gravity is so severe around a black hole that light can no longer escape. The boundary is called an event horizon, which was also a really cool movie when I was growing up in the 90s, where a spaceship like tunnels to another dimension, a spooky dimension. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to ruin the movie. even though everyone should have seen it by now.
There's also rumors that you know how like a lot of human tribal religions, or I guess cults, would worship the sun. So a lot of our gods are sun based. It's because higher dimensional beings could hypothetically use suns as ways to come into our material reality, because the sun emits energy, right? So apparently in some, like, and these are really hypothetical, but
Aliens.
at the same time, the sun is like super conscious because it's much more massive than the Earth is.
Oh yeah, super. Okay, no, I followed that one.
Because, but there's rumors that gods use it to travel to our solar system.
Yeah, sometimes the gods travel in something like a sunboat.
Right, but it's for some reason it's always associated with the sun, and then it's always usually the leader of the pantheon.
Well, Apollo didn't get much of his dues then.
No, Kronos has taken this one.
Well, even if you look
Saturn
at the
eats its
sun,
kids, if we're going to tie it back to time.
Yeah, time is the best teacher, but it ultimately kills all its children.
Well, life consumes itself to continue, the golden ratio.
Right. It's an endward spiral, and it's like also the golden ratio looks kind of like DNA, or if we're going to get into it, gravitational waves also look like that.
We just confirmed gravitational waves not too long ago, right?
Yeah, years ago.
That's not that long ago.
Was it?
It was like 3 years ago.
That's like a long time now in physics.
Stoked.
Oh God, that's right. My physics class is actually starting on the 15th.
So if you look at light closely, it's made of electricity and magnetism, but then they're like oscillating at 90 degrees to each other. And so what you have is the dominating direction of force oscillates in a circle. And as it creates a spiral as it goes outward.
Yeah, it makes this like, it spirals inward and then outward, bigger, and then spirals inward and then outward, and then inward and then outward. So it makes this almost like beads. So if you could imagine time and space in one dimension, like if you could look at it like a 3D object, it would look like an hourglass, but it would continue to have multiple chambers in it.
I heard you liked hourglasses, so I put some hourglasses in your hourglasses.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
hourglasses.
It's like a fractal of hourglasses, if you could imagine that.
It's well, hold on. One more time for the people in the back.
What, like a fractal of hourglasses?
Yeah. Wow. Like looking through a kaleidoscope of hourglasses?
Yeah, because at any given this moment now in time, you have a certain range of causal effect on the universe. And you could go one way or the other. So think about it like if you're outside of the third dimension, think about how other time dimensions you could go. Like if you make a certain choice. So it's like an hourglass spun on a 360 degrees and copied 1,000,000 times into a sphere.
Oh, yeah.
So it can flow any direction, but you're at the center point of that. They're called causal diamonds in quantum theory, but you can only make so many options in that certain sphere that you're in that slice of time. If you could think of time as a slice of a loaf, so you can only extrapolate it a certain amount away from it. There's like an angle to it. So that's what I'm saying about the hourglass is a good description. But if you could think of an hourglass turned 360 degrees in all directions and in order to make a sphere, that's kind of right. Exactly. There's so many different choices you could make, and there's so many different types of paths you could come from that you could make, that you have all these certain choices in front of you. Which
then the Aquarians are right. Time is not a square. Remember that guy, Time Squared? The time cube?
Yeah, but it's a sphere.
Is it a sphere?
What was his theory? It's so weird. Yeah, he was on about the time cube, and he's like, there are four parts to a day, 4 months, four seasons to a year. The world works on square time. I'm butchering his theory, but it wasn't much of a theory to begin with.
I do kind of remember that. I found something kind of strange while researching this, that a quartz crystal oscillates at 32,768 times per second, which is 2 to the power of 15, which are both like kind of important numbers to the devil card, which I thought that was kind of fun. And they're made of silicon, which has the atomic number of 14, which is the number of the alchemy card or the temperance card.
Ooh, that's like how you can get to different octaves of expression of time or reality. Because I really think everything's fractal in nature or it's holographic. That, I mean, even when you look at cells in a microscope, they behave like cultures or people. If you watch them go to eat and then, compete and breed and stuff, it's the same concept. And then the weather looks just like the hurricane that's blowing over right now in the southeast looks just like a galaxy.
Well, then that starts getting into chaos theory where, everything looks like its bigger self, all is one is all, spiral up, and then we're back on the golden ratio again.
But my argument is time is also of that nature.
Well, all things in material are bound to time because of, why? There's actually a reason for this. I think that's probably because of what E equals MC squared, because there's an energy conversion to mass. And so
we're a denser form of light.
Say that again?
Matter is a denser form of light. It's kind of like if you think about, how you can have water vapor, you can even have water plasma or really hydrogen or oxygen plasma, but you can also have ice, or you can have sub-zero ice, or there's even a form below ice that they just recently discovered in water. But it's a phase change is what you have.
There's polarity.
Yeah, kind of, because it's a separate entity, but at the same time, it's connected to the same molecule, but it reacts differently at different conditions. Same with time. I mean, you could imagine that you do something tomorrow, and then when tomorrow comes, you couldn't imagine that you would ever do that again. So, time changes in the same way that even chemicals do, or atoms.
Well, for it to be what it is, it would need to all change. It's like huge. It's almost one of those same entities as a soul. Does time have its own soul, would you say? Well, no, it's a mechanic.
Exactly. It's a feature.
It's a feature. So we can turn it the fuck off.
You can, but you become something like more than what you are right now. If that makes sense.
Well, if it seems like if the two people that are bound in the devil card, like if they get together, they become the devil who is unbound.
Yeah.
Once you transcend subject and object, once there is no distinction between you and the universe, you've kind of like separated yourself from time.
You have to give yourself to that. Yeah.
You have to give yourself to the devil? Mari said it.
Or just something that's above you. You know what I mean? Like you have to if you go into a higher dimension, you're going to become a part of something else. Like that's just inevitable. You're not going to be your individual ego identity anymore.
You go to the Pantheon bar.
Like you might join up with like 500,000 other souls and become one entity like a god, but you're not going to be, yourself anymore as a human.
So like, hold on. Evangelion wise, that'd be like the Instrumentality Project. Combine all the humans to one consciousness so that we can subvert time.
Right. It becomes timeless because especially if you keep feeding it consciousness, because the more observers you have in the now moment, the more effect you can have on the past and the future.
What?
I mean, that's what like some quantum theory is telling us.
Because things don't have like a discrete,
part, but not the past.
Yeah, go for it, Mari. Explain that.
Right. Like a lot of people think, and I mean, this is true. If my causal diamond would be where my future projection actually intersects with my past projection, and it forms this hourglass shape. So that was a really good, because you come to a funnel and then your past goes outward like an upside down funnel. Basically, many different past forms of yourself could have made all of them could have made a different choice and come to the same point that you are right now. So that's what we usually think of, like, okay, well, I did A, B, and C, so now I have to fucking deal with B or D. So, people linearly, you think about that, about the past that way, but you don't think that you can predict the future. Like, I can't be like, well, I'm going to be this someday, so I'm going. Well, that's another story, because that's where creativity comes in. Like, if you can imagine something in the future, you will actually start going towards that point.
Yeah, you're in control of things you're aware of.
Yes, but if you're not aware of it, you can never make that choice. So there's parts outside of the hourglass, if you will, that you don't have access to, because it's like, oh, I want to be a dinosaur. Well, you can't do that, because it's like way outside of your diamond.
Outside of your diamond, but like if you expand your circle outwards, because if you spin the diamond around, like we were talking, it become a sphere. So if you expand your sphere, you can have access to more options. Which
I would argue is like, that would be like the ethereal plane, or like what you experience when you go out of body, or you have a dream or something. You go where you can access your spirit on the now moment. Then yeah, you could go to that causal diamond and be a dinosaur and visit your dead grandma. But what I'm talking about is actual physical reality. You have certain constraints that you can't go to. Like right now, I could start litigating a huge case right now, but I'm not a lawyer, and I've never trained to be a lawyer. So I don't have access to that causal diamond in which I went to law school, and now I am a lawyer. So
you have causal diamond access to a dimension where aliens came and implanted you with a certain like magical ability that would unfold at this exact time, right? Or is that just less likely to happen?
Through meditation.
So it could happen. It could still happen.
And it's really interesting, too, because there's a lot of psychological and therapy theories that they're using right now. Like hypnosis uses this. But you can actually put someone under and have them reimagine, like through a memory, something that happened to them that changed them. And that you can imagine yourself going back into your own memory and changing the memory. And it actually works as if you've changed the past. Like it's not necessarily that you live that, but you're accessing another past where you did have someone come in and save you. So that's how that therapy works, is you're accessing another timeline where you didn't experience that trauma. So you become empowered by that. So you can...
Sorry if I can interrupt. So then would you be jumping? You'd be putting your memory... Would that be memory editing or timeline jumping?
Editing, both.
With the mandala effect, switching your memory.
Both, because what you're doing is if you're editing your memory, because you didn't live through that, obviously. So if you edit your memory with your imagination or your creativity, if you're very visual, if you can write about it or draw it or sing about it, you're calling to this other point on your timeline in the past that's in a separate causal diamond that you didn't experience. So yeah, you can channel energy from and that's what you're talking about, of turning it on its side and going like way out to the side where like you could be a dinosaur. Okay, that's the same thing as like going way out to the side where like, what if I was a lawyer? What if I was the president? What if I was a fucking alien? Like you could meditate on anything, but that's what meditation is if you go out of body, you have access to these things. And like, just because you're imagining it doesn't necessarily mean that it hasn't happened or that it's not real, because the past and the future right now in this moment are not real. Like you can't touch them and you can't feel them and you can't experience them again. But one thing I wanted to note in the beginning of the episode is that consciousness is like the basis of how time works. Like time needs consciousness to feed back upon it to create it itself. So if there's no observers or no one's aware, there's no time.
And that's why in the devil card, the duality creates the aeon or the I, which is used to perceive, and why it corresponds to light, because light is also used to perceive through contrast.
Yeah. And like you have to have, if I'm here now, then I have to know of what my state was before to make a prediction of what will happen next. And then I can decide what to do. And that's what spirit is, or intellect, as we call it. There's some animals that can plan too, and that can think about past memories. Memory is intrinsic to time. If an observer doesn't have a memory or can't record an A time and a B time and compare them, there's no time happening at that point. So empty space has no time, basically.
Oh, yeah. And, if you want to get more time listening to this show, you have to go to www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where $5 you can get all the extended shows, 2 pretty large stickers that are of high quality that if you are a fan of the show, you might possibly enjoy and may use to vandalize the powers that be with my corporate logo. If you
or your car.
Or your car. That's fine.
Or your laptop.
You don't even have to own your car to put stickers on it. Same with a laptop, actually. So, with that in mind, thank you for listening to the show. And Rona, do you want to do the honors?
Carrots, shoot lasers, friends.
That's right, Matt. That's right. Eat carrots and shoot lasers. Thank you. You cut out a little bit.